We are going to do a video here to help you study for English 2, Unit 2. First of all, there is a matching section on this test that has caused some students some difficulty in the past. So we're going to go over them even though they are on your study sheet, but we'll go over some things that might help you remember them. First of all, coordinating conjunctions. The first clue is that in the definition, they use the word conjunction, so that should be help you to connect the two. But remember that these are just the words and, but, for, or, yet. The words that connect two sentence elements together. They're real easy to pick out, and they're just connecting words. So you should be able to get that one pretty easily. Okay, and then we have verbal. A verbal is just a verb form used as another part of speech. It'd be acting as an adjective or an adverb or a noun, not as a verb. If it is acting as the verb, then it is not a verbal. It has to be acting as an adverb, adjective, or noun in order to be a verbal. There are three kinds of verbals. This is all in your matching section. There are three kinds of verbals. One, participle. That's a verb form ending in ing, but it's used as an adjective. It might look like a verb, but if it's being used as an adjective and it ends in ing, then it is participle. The second kind of verbal is a gerund. It also is a verb form ending in ing, but it is used as a noun. So if you have a word that is not a verb in your sentence, it ends in ing, then you've got to decide between a participle and gerund by deciding how it's acting in the sentence. If it's acting as an adjective, it's a participle. If it's acting as a noun, person, place, or thing, then it is being used as a gerund. The third kind is an infinitive. The infinitive is to, the word to, plus a verb form, and it's used as a noun, adjective, or adverb. We'll be distinguishing between infinitives and like a prepositional phrase so that you don't confuse it a little bit later in the study guide. Okay, and since we talked about participles and gerunds, we're going to go ahead and talk about the difference between just a single participle or a participle phrase. And the difference here is just the participial phrase uses a participle, but it adds other words with it. That's just a simple way of saying it. It has complements and modifiers. It just has more to it than just a single participle. For example, I could say the jumping frog. The word jumping is a participle all by itself, but it's not a phrase. But if I said jumping up and down, the frog won the race, that is a participial phrase because I have other words that are going with jumping there. A gerund phrase, the same kind of thing. His jumping made me nervous. There I'm using the word jumping as a noun, so that makes it a gerund, but it's still not a phrase because I'm using it all by itself. But if I said, his jumping up and down made me nervous, then I have other words with the gerund, and that causes it to be a phrase and not just a gerund. Another kind of phrase we're going to talk about then is the prepositional phrase. And prepositional phrase should be pretty easy to match because its definition says a phrase beginning with a preposition. Prepositional phrase. Pretty easy to figure out. But also on your matching, you're going to have to know the two kinds of prepositional phrases because one is an adjective phrase. A prepositional phrase modifying a noun or pronoun. Pardon me for just a minute. Get rid of this for a second. Okay, so this is an example of an adjective prepositional phrase in a sentence. The pig in the pen is fat. Okay, I have a prepositional phrase, in the pen. What is it talking about? It's modifying or talking about the pig. Pig is a noun. That makes this prepositional phrase an adjective modifying pig, which is a noun. That makes it an adjective phrase. Okay, so you can still see my adjective phrase. I left it up here, but then I have an adverb phrase here. The pig is wallowing in the muddy pen. Do we have a prepositional phrase? Yes, we do. In the muddy pen. Okay, what is this phrase talking about? What word is it modifying? It is modifying where the pig is wallowing. It's talking or modifying the verb. That makes it an adverb phrase because it's not talking about a noun. It's talking about the verb, which makes it an adverb phrase. So there are your two types of prepositional phrases. Then we have a verb phrase. A verb phrase is just talking about the verb of the sentence, but it's paired with the helping verb. So the definition, verb ending in ing used as a helping verb. She, example here, she is continuing her education. This is a verb phrase because it has a helping verb with it and ends in ing. All right? Not to be confused with your verbals that end in ing. This is actual verb that is the verb of the sentence. It tells what she is doing. Then our last matching item is the restrictive clause. It just It just basically means an adjective clause. I should have written there an adjective clause that is essential to the meaning of the sentence. Adjective clauses can be non-restrictive, so this just means that the sentence wouldn't mean the same thing without it. So in that case, it would be restrictive. Let me add this word in here, clause. For one thing, it's one of the only definitions that uses the word clause in the definition and in the word that it has to match to. So you should be able to figure that out pretty easily. Okay, and then we have some examples of compound sentences here. Two examples, actually. We're going out for pizza, then we will go to Jerry's house to study. Okay? The second one is, the lead dog seemed tireless. He pulled with all his strength. A compound sentences is two simple sentences connected together in some way. You can have them connected in two different ways. You can have a comma and a connecting word, as then is acting here. Or you can connect them with a semicolon. Both of these are compound sentences because they are two simple sentences put together with some kind of connection. Okay? Because we're going out for pizza can be a sentence by itself, and then we will go to Jerry's house to study could be a sentence by itself, but it becomes like two sentences become one sentence together when they are connected. The lead dog seemed tireless could be a sentence by itself. He pulled with all his strength could be a sentence by itself. Simple sentences, but they become a compound sentence when connected by the semicolon. This is an example of a complex sentence. Now, just like a compound sentence is two simple sentences put together, it's compound. So it's, if you could think of it as a two. Well, if you think of a simple sentence as one and a compound sentence as two, you could think of a complex sentence as a 1.5. And the reason I say that is because this sentence has the main clause, she went out to look at the stars, which could be a simple sentence by itself. But then you have when night fell. Now the reason this is a clause, when night fell, is because it has a subject and a verb. Night fell. But does it have a complete thought? When night fell? No, it doesn't. So it's like a half of a sentence when this is a whole sentence. So that makes this a complex sentence. It has one complete clause and then it has a clause, but it does not complete a thought. So that makes this a complex sentence. All right, we're going to compare these two sentences and try to understand this principle. On the test, you're going to have to identify the ing form, which you can see in both of these sentences here, and determine if it's being used as a verb phrase or as a participle, adjective. Okay, so we have Mary was learning rapidly. Okay, we have our subject, Mary, and then we have what she did. She was learning. That makes this just a verb phrase. Remember in our matching, we went over that a verb phrase is an ing form with a helping verb. Now let's look at the next sentence. Learning quickly, Mary was soon at the head of her class. So we have the subject again, Mary, and the verb, was. Mary was at the head of her class. Okay, so what is our ing form doing over here? This is a participle acting as an adjective. Forgot how to spell participle. Acting as an adjective modifying Mary, which makes it an adjective. Therefore, it can't be a verb or a verb phrase. It is acting as an adjective. So it is a participle. All right. Now we need to identify the infinitive in this sentence. My mother has finally learned to ride my brother's motorcycle. Remember from your matching that an infinitive is simply a verb form to plus a verb form. Because this is not a prepositional phrase, it's a verb form. To plus a verb form. So our infinitive here is to ride. Now, we've got to decide what it's acting as. It's not acting as a verb, so it must be acting as an adjective, adverb, or noun. So, my mother has finally learned. What has she learned? The thing she has learned. To ride. If it's a thing, then it is a noun, because we know that nouns are persons, places, and things. Now we're going to have a sentence that to identify a participle, and the word it modifies. So here we have another sentence, and we are going to identify a participle, not the whole phrase, just the participle, the single word participle that is in this sentence. So, do we see a word that looks like a verb, but is not acting as a verb? Because the sentence says the minister warned. So there's the verb of the sentence, the minister warned. So what's another word that we see here? And remember the participle's in ing. So here we have it right here. Reading. Reading. And it's talking about who? The minister. So it's modifying a noun. So it is modifying the word minister. And we were almost done. We're finishing up in just a couple more here. Now a sentence that is identifying a gerund and its noun use. Remember that gerunds are used as nouns. They end in ing, but they are used as a noun instead of part of a verb. Okay, so we have the sentence, the art of stamp, oh boy, I've repeated some more. The art of stamp, wow. The art of stamp collecting is called philately. I'm not even sure I'm saying that right, because I've never seen that word before, but we can look it up later, and laugh if I said it wrong. So our gerund here, do we see a word that's ending in ing? That's easy. Collecting. That's the easy part. We found our gerund. But determining its noun use, not just whether it's being used as a noun, adjective, adverb, all that, but how it's functioning as a noun, which would mean, is it functioning as a subject? Is it functioning as a direct object? Is it functioning as a predicate noun? What is it functioning as? Here, it's functioning as an object of the preposition because of is a preposition, of stamp collecting, and prepositional phrases end in nouns. So it is the object of the preposition. Okay, and then you must also be able to locate verbal and verbal phrases in their type, gerund, participle, or infinitive. There's going to be several of those. I'm not going to list every single one of them out here. Here's an example of one. Kathy picked up pieces of broken glass. The verbal here is broken because to break something looks like a verb, but here the verb is picked. But broken is describing the word glass. So it's acting as an adjective. Therefore, it's a participle. Now, notice that it doesn't end in ing. And I had told you that participles end in ing. In their past form, they can have other endings also. Okay, they can end, if it's a past participle, it can be used with the ending of en or d, or T even is in the word built. So it is still a participle here because it's a verb form, but it's being used to modify a noun, which makes it an adjective, which makes it a participle. You are also going to need to locate a prepositional phrase in a sentence and identify its use. I kind of went over that when I explained what a prepositional phrase was and whether it was an adjective or an adverb when I went over the matching items at the first part of this study guide video. So you can refer to that if you need a little extra help on that. Do not forget, do not fail to study those matching items. It is a lot of points on your test, and hopefully I explained them well so that you could so that it would be easier for you to match those up. But you will have to really study those in order to pass this test, or else you could fail it just on the matching section. Also, if you need any more questions answered, please feel free to ask for me. Study well, because you want to do very well on this test. So this concludes the video for English 2 Unit 2 Study Guide.